Hello and welcome back to Sharpe's Canon. I'm your host, Captain Rutledge. When we last left Sharpe and Harper, Sharpe had been recovering from a nasty abdominal wound, coming to mend as Sharpe made for him a new sword. Now, as Wellington pushes the French past the Pyrenees, any and all men are needed to ensure a British victory. The problem? New recruits are going missing. It's up to Sharpe and Harper to locate them in Sharpe's Regiment.
The novel of Sharpe's Regiment was first published in 1986, the seventh Sharpe series novel written by Bernard Cornwell. The story takes place shortly after the British victory at Vittoria, as General Wellington's forces chased the French through the misty Pyrenees into France. The French, under Marshal Soult, were ordered by Napoleon himself to counterattack the British, but they were still driven back across the border in several skirmishes, like San Sebastian and Nivelle. As winter set in, Spain was effectively liberated, and Wellington stood waiting to pounce on France come the thaw of spring.
Of course, Sharpe's regiment doesn't take place during any particular battle, or any action for that matter. Rather, it is set mostly in England, and takes a look at recruiting practices within the British Army during the Napoleonic Wars.
Remember how Wellington once labeled his men as scum of the earth?
Scum of the earth, Nan.
Well, that scum was dug up by recruiting sergeants, traveling from town to town collecting recruits to fill the ranks of the British Army. Where the Royal Navy relied on press gangs, the Army could only take willing volunteers. Potential recruits were promised hefty bounties for signing up, not to mention a shilling bonus. After taking the oath, the men would be marched off to the regimental depot. There, they were outfitted and trained by harsh drill masters to become fighting men.
Remember the bounty they were given? Let's just say if you got the bounty upon recruitment, you never see it again. You'd need to spend it on basic necessities like bootlaces, blacking, pipe clay, you name it. Not to mention paying off your uniform. Speaking of which, Campbell, you're still a couple cents behind on your payment.
Oh, hey, is that so, Cap? And tell me, how sharp do you like your sword, and when do you want it returned?
Okay, just pay when you're ready.
Although the system would be under investigation by today's standards, it was almost necessary in order to fill up the British ranks to fight the French in Spain and the Americans in Canada. The drilling, though, sometimes harsh, made the British Redcoat one of the best disciplined and trained soldiers in the world.
All that remained was to march off to war and try to survive.
The TV episode was directed by Tom Clegg and once more written by Charles Wood, who had previously written Sharpe's Company. The episode was filmed on location in England and Turkey, with the usual cast returning, alongside new faces like Abigail Crittenden as Jane Gibbons, Michael Cochrane as Sir Henry Simmerson, James Lawrenson as Major General Hector Ross, and Julian Fellows returning to play the Prince Regent.
Hey, what you say? What you say? Did you say eh?
Guest actors include Nicholas Farrell as Lord Fenner, Carolyn Langrish as Lady Anne Camoins, Mark Lambert as Colonel Bartholomew Girdwood, and Alexander Armstrong in one of his first TV roles as Lord John Rossendale.
Evening, Lord John. Pretty much to see our eagle.
You will bring it back, sir. I did the last time.
Remember last time when I mentioned how Dara O'Malley was almost fired from the set? Thank goodness he wasn't, otherwise we would have missed out on some real gems of Harper humor.
Battalion, to my orders! Who gave you leave to move, you double lord? Stand still.
Anyhow, if Charles Wood's work on Sharpe's Company is anything to go by, we are in store for another faithful adaptation to Bernard Cornwell's original novels. That being said, there are bound to be a few novel continuities neglected from the TV episode. Either way, let's take a look.
Both stories start out with the South Essex facing heavy losses from the French during a skirmish. The novel starts out just 1 week after the Battle of Vittoria, when their colonel, Thomas Leroy, had been killed. Major Richard Sharpe is left in command of what's left of the battalion, half-staffed and waiting for recruits from England. During a meeting with Major General Ross, Major General Nairn in the novel, he discovers that reinforcements aren't coming, and the regiment will be broken up. Aware of recruiting parties still going out, he and recently promoted RSM Harper set sail to England to investigate.
The novel includes other familiar faces that accompany Sharpe and Harper to England. In addition to Harper's wife Isabella, we have Captain Peter Dallenboard and Lieutenant Harry Price. But given they aren't given much to do in the novel, it's understandable why they were omitted.
Marching off to Chelmsford, Sharpe and Harper find a group of lazy officers and regimental clerks, not to mention an old friend.
Oh, still alive, Tig, kiddo.
Permission to speak, still jerking, sir. You'll be kind enough to remember I was with you at Talavera, where I left me leg and drew a lacquery one.
Sergeant Carew states that the recruiting parties still go out, men are recruited, but never seen again. Before any investigation can be made, though, Lord John Rossendale shows up with an invitation for Sharpe from the Prince Regent.
Uniform fits like a ball of wax, but those boots won't do. Did very well for a colonel of Napoleon's Imperial Guard to kill before he'd give them to me.
Showing up in a brand new dress uniform, Sharpe awkwardly meets the Prince Regent and is reunited with the eagle he took at Talavera. At dinner, he brings up the missing South Essex 2nd Battalion with Lord Fenner, the Secretary of State at war, but is given the usual bureaucratic reply.
Sir, it marches on paper.
Oh, I never tread there. Not on paper.
Still, he somehow manages to get a bit.
All book accurate, more or less. One portion left out in the episode, though, was Sharpe, Harper, and Isabella attending a play in Drury Lane about the Battle of Vittoria, and then being publicly acknowledged in their theater box. Sharpe is naturally embarrassed and furiously leaves, but Harper eats it all up. The old rascal.
After the meeting with the Prince Regent, Lord Fenner engineers a plot to take care of Sharpe. After Sharpe visits with his old flame Maggie Joyce in St. Giles' Rookery, he is followed by two men. The episode has Harper saving his neck, while the novel has a young prostitute tip him off. Either way, both men are killed, and one is revealed to be a sergeant from the South Essex.
It's at this point in the novel that Sharpe and Harper go into hiding with Patrick's cousin Riley in Southwark, and Isabella stays with the Rileys while Price and Dallenboard run to the countryside. And as for Sharpe and Harper?
What do we do with ourselves now that we're no more?
We're gonna find that 2nd Battalion.
How do we do that?
We're gonna join the army.
Sharpe and Harper, as Dick Vaughan and Paddy O'Keefe, join a South Essex recruiting party led by Horatio Havercamp, using every trick in the book to take recruits. After having their fill of ale, the next morning they're marched off to Foulness in the Essex Moors for training. Their drill masters? Lieutenant Colonel Bartholomew Girdwood, whose characterization is spot on from the novel.
I can admit fear. Any man who does not feel fear, and I brand him a liar.
And Sergeant Lynch. In the novel, Lynch was born Irish, but abandoned his heritage in order to get ahead in an Englishman's army. Drilling is tough, punishments severe, not to mention what happens to Charlie Weller's dog. Let's just say that the novel's form of canicide would have the RSPCA in a frenzy. While dredging in a canal, Sharpe discovers what's been happening to the South Essex recruits.
I think you'll find they're all well-trained men. Excellent fellows. Good jaw on him. Damn good teeth. Open your mouth, man! There. 50 guineas for him.
Crimping. The illegal sale of men to other regiments. A savvy salesman could earn handsome profits for each man sold off, allowing battalions to bulk up their numbers and avoid disbandment. Not to mention maintaining a comfy commission for those buying up the men. Normally in this case, Colonel Girdwood earns a tidy profit as well as the true mastermind.
Colonel Girdwood trains them as by the Prussian method, you know, sir?
I do, Sir Henry.
Bit confusing, seeing how he was in Spain not that long ago in the TV series. Perhaps it's just a side hustle.
Eventually, Sharpe comes in contact with Simmerson's niece, Jane Gibbons, whom in the novels Sharpe had met back in 1811, and it's implied in the episode that they had met previously as well. Sharpe learns more about the crimping scheme from Jane, and arranges an escape with her for both him and Harper. However, one of the recruits, Marriott, had escaped.
Where is he, Filth?
Don't know, Sergeant. Here's his shovel.
Don't want this bloody shovel, I want him!
He's eventually found by Sharpe and shot dead by Lynch, then buried in the mud of the estuary. Harper, who had spoke out against Lynch, is held in connection to the deserter and set loose in the evening for a manhunting sport for the officers. Thankfully, Sharpe assists the Irishman in escaping, and the two make their way to the boathouse and Jane, using a hostage captain in the novel for extra security. Not to mention escaping on the river with militia hot on their tails, then going by barge all the way to London. Back in London, Sharpe awaits an audience with the Duke of York, Commander-in-Chief of the army, but to no avail. He does, however, meet a familiar face.
My dear Richard. Sir. Yes. I heard you were in town. And field rank, my word. Is this hero the sergeant I taught to read and write?
Having no concrete proof of the crimping auctions, Sharpe is essentially back at square one. Lawford meets with Lord Fenner, who is also in on Simmerson's crimping schemes. In order to assuage scandal, both plan to send Sharpe off to America, though Lady Anne, Sharpe's lover from court, hears all and, seeking Fenner's undoing, confides in Sharpe.
Why do you wish to destroy Lord Fenner?
He ruined my husband and caused his death. I now pay off my husband's debts by clambering over him and under him when his needs demand I should. I am still in his debt.
Both seek the end of Simmerson's crimping schemes, and in order to do so, require the account books of the illegal auctions.
And now we get to the satisfying part. Very book accurate.
God save Ireland. God save Ireland. Say it, Lynch. Go on. Say it! God save Ireland! God save Ireland!
Part of me still wants to hear Sharpe dressing down the other sergeants. Sharpe waited. He looked at each of the sergeants, again letting the silence put fear in them, and when he did speak, his voice was savage. Every one of you is going to die. That froze them. Whatever they had been expecting, it was not that. They seemed hardly able to breathe as they stared at him. You're going to die because you're useless boogers. A dozen of you against one man. He gestured at Harper. And you lost. You think the French are weaklings? You couldn't even catch the two of us. We ran circles around you, you feeble bastards. Brightwell! Sir! The sergeant major was sitting stiffly in an old armchair, which trailed tufts of horsehair. I believe you owe Regimental Sergeant Major Harper one crucifix. Do you have it? Brightwell said nothing. His face, red and broken, veined anyway, was scarlet now. Sharpe stared at him. I asked you a question. No, sir. No what? Don't have it, sir. Then you'll pay him for it. Sharpe looked at Lynch and found him at the back of the room. Lynch! Sir! Sharpe paced towards him, stopping halfway down the long, bare hut. I watched you commit a murder, Lynch. Lynch was white. Colonel's orders, sir. Go and lick out a latrine. Now. Sir? Move! But, sir... Sharpe waited till the sergeant reluctantly moved, then told him to stay where he was. You see, Lynch, there are some orders you choose to obey, and some you do not. Sit down, you bastard. Your punishment for that murder is delayed. Sharpe turned. I've taken over command of this battalion as of this evening. The senior captain is now Mr. Dallenboard. The head of this mess is Regimental Sergeant Major Harper. As you are aware, the Sergeant Major and I had to use unusual methods to find you. Whatever happened to myself and the RSM in this place is now forgotten. This is over. There will be no recriminations for anything that happened to us, no punishments, nothing. They stared at him, surprised by leniency. So listen to me. I know what has been happening here. The army knows. Every one of you, every single one of you has earned a prison sentence or worse. He was making it up as he went along, but their submission told him that he was on target. But the army in its wisdom is not going to pursue charges. Not if you bastards now do as you're told, and do it well. Not one of them moved. The last rays of the sun slashed through the drifting dust in the air. There will be no more selling of recruits. We're marching to Chelmsford tomorrow. We're going eventually to Spain. I'm leaving you miserable bastards in your present ranks. I expect you to earn that trust. You are accountable to the regimental sergeant major, and if any of you do not like that, then I'll suggest you take it up with Sergeant Major Harper personally. I can tell you from personal experience that he has no objections to settling quarrels in private. Harper kept his rigid pose, but slowly, very slowly, a smile appeared on his face. No one smiled back. Sharpe was nearly through with them. I assume that all of you remember how real sergeants behave. And as how you will behave. There'll be no punishments except those sanctioned by a company officer or the officer of the day, or by myself, and all such punishments will be recorded in the battalion book. If I discover any one of you trying to get round that order, I will punish that man myself, in private and alone, and without entering it into the book. 2 last things. He did not raise his voice, and only Harper knew how desperately Sharpe meant these final words. If any man out of any of your companies deserts on tomorrow's march, I will punish you for that desertion. There will be march orders in 3 hours. Be ready for them. And one last thing. There was a small stir as they looked up at him. So far, beyond insults that they deserved, he had not been harsh. His face was full of disdain. If any of you are frightened of going to Spain and wish to stay with a properly constituted 2nd Battalion, give your name to the RSM. On your feet! He waited till they were standing. Good evening.
Searching Girdwood's office, no accounts turn up, but Girdwood escapes like a thief in the night, taking the account books from the Simmerson house and running off to London. Sharpe meets Jane shortly after, and Jane reveals more.
Could you find the ledgers?
I want to, but it's hard.
That would help me disgrace Girdwood.
I know. I should take the risk, but if I fail, I shall be punished.
By who?
My uncle beats me. Sir Henry hates you. I think he also envies you.
Get me the books. You will bear no blame. I will not see you punished. And I shall protect you. I will marry you. I'm sorry.
The next morning, the South Essex recruits are marched to Chelmsford, and then towards London, taking a number of white chickens along the way. In Hyde Park, everything goes down. Simmerson transfers the account ledgers to Lord Fenner, who in turn takes them to be destroyed. As a parade of troops process in front of the Prince Regent, a reenactment of Vittoria commences, changed to a stage play in the TV episode. In the middle of the review, Sharpe and the South Essex march out, the Talavera eagle in hand, and salute the Prince Regent with 3 white feathers in their caps, in an effort to gain the Prince Regent's protection. Sharpe, meanwhile, is put under arrest.
He didn't see fit to go.
Not without men. I came for men.
Sharpe faces a court of inquiry at Horse Guards for disobeying orders, stealing a battalion of men, and disturbing the peace. Before being condemned to a convict guard in Australia, Lady Anne returns with the crimping ledgers in hand.
I have the other one, quite safe, rescued from the flames as well.
Out! Lord, I insist this is done properly.
Oh, it is being done properly, Sebastian. Were it done any other way, my dear General, there is likely to be the most horrid scandal.
As a favor, Sharpe is restored to the South Essex, the battalion is properly set up, and Colonel Girdwood is sent to Spain to fight in a true battle.
You'll serve under him?
I will, sir. And I don't wish him to resign his commission before we set sail, sir.
Very well.
Lastly, Jane and Sharpe elope and return to Spain together. In their first skirmish with the French, the new recruits acquit themselves admirably, though Colonel Girdwood loses his mind, and Sergeant Lynch...
Filth!
I'd have to say, Sharpe's Regiment is probably the best adaptation in the whole Sharpe series, thanks in no small part to the writing of Charles Wood.
Owen Harris worked best at making the novels fit to the actors and budget. Charles Wood preferred to keep more faithful to the original novels, and in this case, for the best. The episode, while not capturing the hell of war, gave a look at the home front during the wars against Napoleon, the corruption in the army, and a look at army training 200 years ago. It's a definite must-watch for any history buff wanting to learn more about armies during the Napoleonic Wars.
and the drums go rat-tat-tat-tat, rat-tat-tat-tat. Then the whole world goes bang. Don't go away.
And honestly, I can wholeheartedly say it's my favorite episode of the bunch. Thank you for watching, everybody, and tune in next time as Wellington's army crosses into France for the final push. Sharpe and Harper are back, and they're marching forwards. Good day.